when it comes to punk music and politics, generally speaking, the politics tend to skew pretty left of center, pretty far left of center in a lot of cases, frankly, very far left of center. Now, that does not mean that there aren't punks who have a conservative mindset. That doesn't mean there aren't punks who are right-wing. That doesn't mean that there aren't punks that are extremely right-wing. I mean, that's part of the reason that the Dead Kennedy song, Nazi Punks Fuck Off, even exists in the first place. What can you do at this point other than tell them off and remind them of how out of place they are in the circle that they're in? And the newest, latest, biggest, most controversial instance of this recently is apparently at a Circle Jerks concert. Frontman Keith found himself just basically arguing back and forth with a bunch of conservative dudes who just weren't just there in the audience, weren't just there in the crowd, but apparently were just like front row up against the barrier, like close enough to where you would have to imagine these guys are like hardcore fans enough to have waited in line quite a long time in order to get like at the spot that they're in. And then to put in all that time and effort and still not understand what kind of show you're going to be in for. Because even as somebody who I would say I'm a pretty casual Circle Jerks fan, like not my favorite West Coast punk band ever. You know, they have some killer records for sure. I think, you know, in recent years, I probably spent more time listening to like Off, Keith's other band, especially that free LSD record is killer, is great. Really great swan song of an album for them. But like, even with that very casual sort of like reading and understanding, I have a pretty good place of where Keith's politics are, and would think twice about sort of like being a conservative, going to one of his shows, or at the very least going to one of his shows and being loud and proud and annoyingly conservative in his face, given his beliefs. I would actually have a difficult time probably not dealing with some kind of internal I would say like some level of cognitive dissonance listening to one of his songs, knowing that like he's so diametrically opposed to everything that I think and believe. And yet, again, these guys are going to one of his shows, one of his live shows, and arguing with him as if the show is where this debate needs to happen. And here apparently is how it goes.
I'm a traitor? Oh, no. F*** you. I vote in every election, and I always vote for the least stinkiest piece of shit.
You know, look, I know there's a lot of debate in left-wing circles about like the viability of electoral politics and whether or not voting for the lesser of two evils works, or is that where we should be focusing most of our energy? But, you know, if that's really what somebody wants to do, I'm not going to begrudge them that. I feel like that's honestly like kind of a bare minimum sort of thing. And I think, you know, you'd have to be a fool to wholeheartedly believe that there aren't at least, you know, several major social and economic issues that we're currently facing by virtue of Trump having gotten into office over Kamala Harris. Just trying to make sure I get the right pronunciation there. I apologize. So again, if that's somebody's prerogative, I'm not going to begrudge them that. And I mean, that's like almost like baseline political engagement to sort of like have a conversation about traitorism with somebody, with that being sort of like a bone to pick, to me is like crazy. It sort of speaks to probably the mentality of the people Keith is arguing with in the front row. I don't know electoral politics is a fucking scam, but Lenin does say that we should use elections just to make material conditions better before revolution. Sure, absolutely. You know, I feel like any sort of effort that you can put forward that alleviates things or makes things easier for change down the road or makes things better, sort of like in a net positive utilitarian way for the greatest amount of people, makes things less difficult, makes things less deadly, less strenuous, is a good thing. You know, where I think the bad shit comes in with that kind of mindset is like you go out, you vote, and then afterwards you're like, well, we did that. We did the thing. Let's go back home and have brunch now. It's like, no, that's the wrong thing. That's when you've done the wrong thing. Like, Honestly, some of the hardest work happens after that part.
Why? Hey,
Be a dead Kennedy if you're going to talk politics.
What did that guy say about dead Kennedys? Like something about dead Kennedys if you're going to talk about politics?
so you're not here for my political. You're here for the music. Do you understand our lyrics?
What the fuck? It's really it's the classic conservative problem every time. Separate the politics from the music, man. Don't put politics in my music. Politics have caused concert tickets to cost more than your car payment, and you can't see your favorite band now because you didn't want to talk about politics. Just how many instances have we run into where you have these conservative fandoms following artists and following bands and loving songs like Born in the USA or swearing devotion to bands like Rage Against the Machine, or sort of being like, oh man, I loved Rage before they started raging for the machine. And yet they found themselves in this place because they don't know what the songs mean, or they just haven't really put forward the thought or the effort to try to understand what the songs mean. It's like a Gen X thing to miss the point so hard with punk music. Maybe it is. I think that there are also a lot of like older Gen X type punks and people who came before them who are, and even people in the metalcore community who are even, I would say, like older, like elder millennial age. There are a lot of people who have roots in the punk and hardcore community and have unfortunately deluded themselves into believing that like they are still the exact same way mentally that they were when they were a teenager. And what has happened is that the whole world changed around them, man. And it's not them who has changed or is like, you know, gotten more conservative. I haven't gotten right wing. It's that the whole world has gone crazy, loony leftist. And, you know, while I will agree to an extent, I do think the internet and the punk scene politically has like radicalized maybe like a little bit more on like some issues over the past 20 years. But I feel like part of what's essential about like being punk and being read up on and like caring about these issues is that you also like progress with the times. You don't just like fucking freeze yourself into one mentality or perspective for the rest of your life. So I'm sure at one point, like maybe some of these dudes were teenagers and listened to Circle Jerks and like, yeah, we're probably like a lot more radical than your average like fucking Reaganite Republican. But with the way that social politics have shifted around now, like some of these dudes don't want to give up the world that they grew up in. So as a result, like they embrace conservatism and they embrace right-wing thought while still believing on some level that they can hold on to sort of this belief that like, no, I'm still punk. I'm still with it. I grew up listening to punk. I'm still punk. More likely they were Screwdriver fans. Maybe some of them were. No, exactly. Tim Pool is exactly like the type of dude who, like, as he says on his own show, like grew up listening to Against Me.
I am an OG fan. OG, of course, for those that don't know, means original gangster.
And that means like, I'm still just as radical now as I used to be. When like reality is like even Laura is not as radical politically today as she was back in that day. Like she's made songs literally about how I used to have an anarchist mentality then and I don't now. There are aspects of that political and ideological shift that I don't agree with, honestly, and find like maybe a tad bit cringy, you know, sort of like almost turning your ideological shift into like a mea culpa or something that you have to excuse away. I do understand how like, you know, her standing for those ideals and beliefs at one point did bring a lot of people in who felt almost like a little disheartened with the way that things for her may have shifted politically from her perspective over the years. I don't know. But look, as debatable as that is, and I feel like there are definitely questions there worth exploring, that is nowhere near as cringe or as stupid as like the kind of ruse a guy like Tim Pool is attempting to pull off every day, where he gets on the internet and tries to convince you, I'm apolitical. I'm in the center. I'm fair-minded. In fact, I even have like liberal roots, when in reality, like, you're just paying conservative talking points lip service day in and day out. I know we're just barely through this clip now, but there's so many things to unpack here.
Do you understand what we're singing about? Do you understand that I think Donald Trump is the biggest piece of shit to ever walk the Are you Nazis? Are you fascists? Well, here's the deal, gentlemen, you guys. First, I'm not signing your record.
Okay. Is he just throwing that out to break their balls, or do they really have something there for him to sign?
Second off, the next time we come to town, stay the home.
Ouch. Getting disinvited from the next Circle Jerk show.
It's really simple.
Is that guy who's been arguing with in the front row now, like throwing his arm up in there, like, yeah, yeah. Or is that a different guy? Is that a different bald guy? Also, is there more discussion past this point, or do they just rip into the song? Oh God, he's holding a shirt up. What the fuck is he doing now? This guy is honestly just an obnoxious piece of shit. Like, what the fuck is going on? This is the thing about like being a loud, out and proud moron at a punk show. Like, and I don't know if there's people who are sort of outside of the punk scene who don't really get or understand this. I know there's a lot of elements of punk music and punk culture that like people don't fully understand. There are lots of misconceptions around it, but for the most part, like in a lot of places, especially with a band like Circle Jerks, if you're running around being really loud, really annoying, really obnoxious, especially like it totally MAGA in people's faces or whatever, you will get beat the fuck up. You will get checked. You will get attacked. Like, you will get put in your place, and it's just gonna happen, you know? But I mean, if you're cool, a punk show will be the most nice, chill thing in the world. If you're moshing and you get knocked over, people will pick you up. It's usually really great energy until you decide to be in the front row at the show, yelling at the singer of the band because you don't like their political bullshit. Oh my God, is that him in the black hat, or is it another guy? I thought it was a bald guy. I'm a little lost as to like who is the point of the ire here. Man, now the security's got to get in there and break it up. It's like a feeding frenzy. Everyone's like, fuck this dude. This dude is ruining the vibe at the punk show. Oh my God, that woman really wants it. That woman in the background really wants it. She's like, yeah! Yeah! And you guys wonder how they used to watch the battles at the Coliseum back in the day. This is how it used to go. Now the security has to save this guy's life because he didn't know well enough to not be an idiot. Did the security guy fall over? Okay, yeah. So I knew it was a bald guy with that beard. I mean, even if you are conservative, you've got to read the room. You're at a punk show. You're at a hardcore punk show. You're at a circle jerk show. Nobody's going to congratulate you for believing what you believe.
That shit, bro!
Blue Lives Matter at the Soul Glow show kind of vibe. Oh, not the F you.
You know what?
Damn, people are taking it to him out the door too. Like even on the way out, people are taking it to him. Holy shit. This guy's facing the gauntlet all the way to the back door.
We're all citizens of the United States. That does not mean we've got to align ourselves with those none of them. We have a situation going on right now where we have this group of people, these know-it-all people, these religious people, these white Christian nationalists who are nothing but Bible-waving Nazis.
Talk about whether or not you feel like, rhetoric like this can or cannot be helpful in the current political dynamic. I mean, I know I've engaged in a fair amount of it myself, but like, no matter what way you cut it, this is a rant that Keith would not be on right now, if not for the fact that there was just this confrontation that happened and this guy needed to be excommunicated from the audience. When you're kind of pointing this at the administration and the higher ups and those in power, I feel like it's a fair assessment and I feel like it's a fair rant to have. It is something that needs to be highlighted. And I feel like more sort of monologues and rants and points like this need to be made at like rock shows to remind people of the severity of the state of our times right now. But with that being said, like it does become person versus other person to the left or the right of you the moment that you have a moron like this in the crowd who gets kicked out and then he becomes like the center of the attention, when really it's like, sort of those in power sort of poisoned his mind into thinking what he thinks, thinking that he is entitled to start the argument that he is starting at the show. Those are the ones who are fucking shit up. This dude, unfortunately, just like fell prey to probably like some Facebook conspiracy theories, and he's a bit of a dummy and a bit of a hardhead, and maybe he had a couple too many to drink at the punk show and needs to move on with his life. But yeah, very funny to sort of have the balls, have the gall to show up to the Circle Jerk show and want to start a fight with the singer over his political bullshit. Very wild stuff.